Get on a midnight ride. Pop the clutch, throttle down. Screaming tires in this one-horse town. Stop sign, country road. On your mark, ready, set, go. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? From your head down to your toes. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Your heart racing like it's gonna explode. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Like a twister, touching ground. I'm slinging gravel as a siren sound. Engine revving like my nerves. I don't even slow down for curves. Blue lights flashing, they're falling behind. I just lost them at the county line. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? From your head down to your toes. Can you feel it? Your heart racing like it's gonna explode.
Welcome everyone to the Do What Is Necessary live stream. Welcome everyone to the show today. So if you are joining us, drop that in the comments where you're watching from today. Happy to have some regulars on the call today. So let us know that you can hear me okay. You can see my video, everything synchronizes, all that good fun tech fun stuff that we tech guys love. So just let me know you can hear me all right. Looks like we've got Eric tuning in from another Buckeye. Steve will be joining us on the call today. You might recognize Eric Steffi. Looks like we've got some those of you from the UK. So awesome. Welcome to the show. So it looks like we got... All right, so like I said, just drop that in the comments that you can hear me okay. Looks like we've got a LinkedIn user dialing in from Michigan. Boo. No, I'm not going to start that battle already. So another Buckeye joining us in the show today. So welcome to the show. So the reason for the show, like I said, if you're joining us, and just let me know in the comments you can hear me okay. And then we will get rolling here in a minute or so. But I wanted to take a minute. A couple weeks ago, the subject of this show is my cloud provider went belly up, now what? And I've been in those shoes where you come in on a Monday morning, and it's usually early in the week, you get that email, you open up an email, and one of your vendors is sending you an email letting you know that they're ceasing operations, and oh, by the way, you've got 2 weeks to move all of your data. So I thought this was a very relevant topic, and I think it's something that, unfortunately, due to the economy that we're seeing, that we're probably going to see more of this. And what I wanted to do was have a show that's dedicated to helping us as MSPs prevent that from happening, how we make better business decisions, how we prevent that from happening to our customers, and just talk about the ways that we can mitigate the effects on our businesses and ultimately, like I said, our clients. So welcome, Eric, to the show from North Carolina. We've got some first-timers joining us today. Thank you so much for hanging out with us this afternoon. But I have a special guest this afternoon. If you've watched any of my previous episodes, last week I brought on my very first guest on the Do What Is Necessary live stream. This week we've got two in a row. My guest this week is the one and only Steve Greeter. Steve and I met, oh man, it probably goes back a ways, but he is just an awesome human being, for one, and does a tremendous amount here in the state of Ohio for the tech community. He did a lot for me in being able to help me through some some challenges that we had, and specifically around moving to the cloud. And this was 2011, 2012. So, but again, I'm going to go ahead and bring Steve onto the show. So welcome, everyone. This is Steve Greeter from Expedient Data Centers. Steve, if you just want to let everybody know you can hear me all right, welcome to the show. And like I said, if you're just joining us, let us know you can hear us okay. I think I lost your audio, Steve. Oh man, we love this tech stuff, guys. That's the fun advantage of doing a live show. So Steve might have to bounce out and reconnect here, so just bear with us. All right, Steve's going to rejoin us here in a minute, so just bear with us as we work through all that fun technical stuff. So let me see if we can get Steve back on the line. But if you've ever had that happen to you where a vendor has gone belly up, left you hanging, put that in the comments. Just let us know that we're not alone. I can't be the only one. And like I said, this is lit up some tech forums that I'm a part of a few weeks ago. So let me just see if we can get Steve back on the call here. So just bear with us as we work on getting Steve back in here. So
can you hear me now, Andrew?
I can, Steve. So let me just see if we can flip over. So I'm getting Steve reconnected, so just bear with me, guys, as we work through some of these tech gremlins on a live broadcast. So let me just flip over here. Let's see here. There we go. Can you hear me now, Steve?
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear
All
me,
right.
Andrew?
Awesome. I
All
can hear
right.
you just fine. Now I think we can get rolling. So I don't
All
know whether
right.
this is on our end. It's but yeah, we're doing a few things new this week. I'm streaming to multiple platforms this week. So those of you joining us on Facebook and YouTube, welcome. But this is typically a live stream we've been doing for a few months, the Do What Is Necessary live stream. So welcome everybody to the show. Give Steve some thumbs up. Let me know that you can hear him okay. But we're going to just talk about the challenges of the MSP market, the challenges of moving to the cloud, things that he's been able to see, and the guidance that he gives to MSPs alike, not only here in the state of Ohio, but all over. I think he works with providers pretty much all over the United States. So welcome
correct.
to the show, Steve. Super glad to have you on the show today. So.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew. Really appreciate being on your show today. For the listeners and the viewers today, I've had the great fortune of knowing Andrew, working with Andrew closely all the way since the beginning of 2002, when he was over at Ohio Supercomputer Center and I was over at Platform Lab across the street, and we were a very fun pair. There was no doubt about that. So I'm honored that Andrew asked me onto his show today.
So tell us a little bit about how you got started in tech. That's always, I know we all have fun stories about how we managed to end up in the IT industry. So.
This is a miserable story, Andrew. Thank you for allowing me to tell it. I had worked 9 years for an organization, a worldwide organization called Dun & Bradstreet. I was running their Dublin facility. We were in the top 3 years in a row out of 55 markets. We were doing pretty well. And I got a call one day from a vice president I've never heard of, and he told me that officially in 3 weeks was my last day. They were shutting down the Columbus office. I used some exceptionally inappropriate language with him, and then he said, "Steve, we understand that you're very passionate about your job, and that's what's gotten you ahead. We're not shutting down Columbus. We're shutting down every single market in America. We're going to serve our clients better by no longer seeing them in person." So at that point in time, I thanked him for relieving me of this job because I didn't want to work for a company like that. I made a vow that I would never work for an enormous organization ever again. I would sing for my supper. And being at Dun & Bradstreet, and I had those 3 weeks to look for a job, you could see every single market. And this was in 1999. And of course, IT looked best. So I went into IT. I worked for a corrupt bandwidth company for a couple of years. Found my way in 2002 over to Platform Lab. and it's been a wonderful ride ever since. I've now been with Expedient for about 9.5 years. It's a wonderful organization to work for, and I'm blessed to be a part of their organization, working out of the Central Ohio market.
That's awesome, man. It's funny how we all end up, that we've all had that experience working for the big corporate giants. But yeah, you're like me. I've had a few of those stories where you go out in a blaze of glory.
Well, this was hardly a blaze at that point in time, Andrew. But thank you for that.
All right, so let's get to the meat of our subject this week. Is my cloud provider went belly up. Now what do I do? So just tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in the market, what you've seen prior to COVID, what you're seeing during COVID, and kind of where you see the market going. I know you gave me a graphic, so just tell me when to throw it up for everybody.
Well, thank you. So I'm really looking at approaching this from two angles. So you're talking about the business viability in the MSP space, absolutely, as well as what to look for if you're an MSP and you want to be partnered with somebody. Oh no, my cloud provider's gone in 2 weeks. As I recall, I was actually with Expedient early in my career, 2011, and a major restaurant chain here in Central Ohio had that exact scenario. The lady who was running it called one of her mentors. Her mentor told, call me, let's see what we could do. And it was even worse for them because that standard 2 weeks example that you gave, she called in and said, all right, you said I've got 2 weeks to get out. I'd like to talk to somebody about what exactly I've got on your cloud over there. And they said, well, we had to fire all our engineers this morning, so the secretary couldn't give her any answers.
Oh, man.
So it was a very fun migration process that we were a part of, discovery on the fly, if you will. That said, all right, so we're going to talk about business viability. We're going to talk about what to look for. So if you want to put up that slide, don't worry, everyone out there in viewership. I sent Andrew one slide, so we're not going to put you to sleep today.
It won't be death by PowerPoint, we promise. So
that is the truth. Okay.
Yep.
Let me know when they can see it.
Yeah, they should be able to see that now. I've got that screen on there for you.
Right. So this is something that we learned from 451 Research. So I'm going to give them the credit for the slide. They talked about where the dollars in the industry are going in this very tumultuous 2-year period, 2019 to 2021. This slide, of course, was written pre-COVID. So in my mind, I believe this is accelerating. But the key aspect here is let's talk about the traditional MSP market. The traditional MSP market would be the organizations that would have gear on-prem. The MSP sells the gear to the business, and then a service deal attacked onto that where they're going to manage the environment. They're going to make sure everything's up, that everything's running. They're going to make sure that the safekeeping, the security, everything's up to speed. Well, you can tell by this graphic here that 39% of all businesses in USA were still doing it that way at the beginning of 2019. And what 451 was projecting, that would be down to 16% of the addressable market, losing over half the addressable market in this 3-year range. Well, no one was prepared for what happened at the beginning of this year. And I will say that from a cloud provider perspective, that this has accelerated the process. And more companies are moving to a cloud-based model. So what I implore, this is back to the business aspect, you can drop the slide there, Andrew, right, is that I would implore the MSPs to align to, they can keep their traditional business, that's what they've been doing, but make sure they're incorporating some of the recurring revenue business that's out there by aligning to the OpEx model over the CapEx model. We realize they have some of the OpEx model when it comes to the services, but at this point in time, you'd be very well served to align with a cloud provider. In some cases, you create your own cloud and sell that to the client. and put it on the recurring revenue model, it's going to be it's going to be your best bet in the long run.
So do you see, is that what you're seeing, that people are kind of building their own clouds inside of your data center? Or I think you guys provide that as a service as well. Which
We
you
do,
see?
we do, but I really want to address this as the entire market, just
Yeah.
not from the expedient aspect. So we do know, and we have several of our clients who do build a cloud, and they build it inside the expedient data center, and that's all well and good. Which really boils down to what their value that they are providing the client is best served. And if they are a purely technical play, and they think that they have a technology that is a greater advantage than other clouds, then that might be a way to go about it. But I will say this, is with the acceleration of the process and what the client demands are, when you're talking about Kubernetes and Rancher and Portworx and bringing on the cloud native aspects, that's really difficult to do. And sometimes you need a partner. I may be biased, but we recommend working with a cloud provider and then layering the MSP services on top of that, and the hand-holding, and the ability to meet in person, and the ability to be there on a moment's notice for your client. And so rolling in a cloud offering into that. What helps the MSP is it minimizes your capital expenditures, as well as it predicts a very predictable cost and revenue model for the business. So we just really want to concentrate on, for the MSP, where's their time best spent. Now, I run our reseller program out of Central Ohio, Central and Southern Ohio now, and we've got 6 MSPs in the community that will actively resell our cloud. Now, to be fair, they'll also actively sell Azure if that's the right cloud for the model, AWS if that's the right cloud for the model, and we emphasize to the end client, we emphasize to the MSP partner that that use the right cloud for the job. Make sure that you understand the cloud models, because they are different. Andrew and I were talking last week about all clouds are the same, just like all cars are the same or all people are the same. So all 3 of those statements are patently false. And the fact of the matter is that work with your MSP. The MSPs will work with the various clouds to make sure that really your workload is where it should be.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think it's the same challenge that we as MSPs have is, we're all the same too. And that's the challenge that we have. How do we differentiate ourselves from what everybody else is doing? Because anybody could throw up shingles, say they're an MSP, they're a cloud provider, that they have all this expertise, and they may or may not have that. So that makes it more challenging to compete at a business level, because from a client perspective, everybody's websites all say the same thing. Everybody's marketing materials all say the same thing. So in their mind, it's all the same. So, yeah, I could see where that would be a huge challenge to overcome.
I will say that some organizations have the ability to do some market segmentation to help differentiate themselves out there. We do the same thing. We do market segmentation and key aspects to differentiate ourselves. But we work with MSPs who primarily work one patch of geography, right? And really, they're the dominant MSP in that market, and that will work. We have another MSP that really targets healthcare, and that works out well for them, and they're very well versed in the HIPAA language and such, and it enables them to do those things. From our aspect, one of the things that we differentiate is we'll give the client a 100% uptime SLA. Well, then that MSP, who's our client, can go ahead and take that and roll that forward to the client, and that helps with differentiation to a degree.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Do you see any particular vertical market kind of more gravitating toward cloud solutions, or are you seeing it kind of across the board? Kind of post-COVID, everybody's working from home, everybody's looking for distributed environments, but...
Right. I would certainly say it is across the board now. There are some markets, some verticals that will gravitate a little more quickly, but realistically, um, IT and technology and cloud are really go across every single market that's out there. It's just really based on the businesses. What's the best situation for them to be in? Where we have seen some an interesting play there is to the great degree, almost every business that we talk to is interested in moving some aspect of their workload to the cloud, and we encourage it because it belongs there. Sometimes I'll come across a business that says, "Well, we're going to go ahead and buy more hardware, and we're gonna build it out that way." And I'll say, is that strategic for the business? No, we're doing it one last time. And of course, well, if you're going to do it one last time, why don't you make the last time the last time? And often it's again back to what the business is most comfortable with sometimes. And that's where the MSP partner they work with can be so helpful because they can work with them and really help identify on an application by application basis where the workloads go. And an MSP that can do that for their client is going to be an MSP that's going to get a lot of referrals, that's going to have the opportunity to move the ball forward for their clients.
Yeah, and I think, we were doing this when I sold my MSP in 2014. I would say we had probably half of our customers, attorneys especially, liked the idea of a cloud. We had one attorney that doubled its staff size in the course of a year. And then, he wanted people to be able to work remotely, work in the field. So all of those things, those are things that we were starting to embrace and move that forward in 2014. I think, kind of what we're seeing right now is we will see an escalation of that even more, just based upon, the COVID situation. Because to your point, if we just go buy more hardware and we put it in our office, I think the challenge for a lot of MSPs was, what do you do if something goes down in the office and you're not allowed to get in there?
It's absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. Interesting. I'm going to do a plug for a program I'm a part of. I've partnered with the Central Ohio CIO Forum together with Expedient, with Innovative Leadership Institute. We launched a leadership development program called IT Leaders. Okay, it's been around for 4 years. It's been very rewarding. That said, that first class in March, we had to go remote, right? And unfortunately, we've had to go remote March, April, May, June. And the class that we had was the Thursday after the lockdown. Okay, so I believe that would have been the 19th or something right along in there. Yep. So what happened is we have breakout sessions, and normally the everyone is in the class is talking among themselves, of course, and the only thing everyone wanted to talk about was reaction to COVID and what their organizations were doing, which is completely understandable. Yep. So the organizations that I was on the line with in our breakout session, they talked about how difficult it was to go, and they do everything themselves. They do everything in-house. So they had to get the licenses. They had to make sure the VPNs, they're checking their security. They're checking their policies. They're doing all the steps that they've got to take. Then they said, at the end, well, what did you guys do? I said, well, a bunch of people called in and says, yeah, I've got 8 VPNs. I need to have it 800. Oh, wow. Sure, we can help you with that. How long is it going to take? Well, give us, hopefully by the end of the day, maybe by lunch. Okay, turn the dial. Done. And it was relatively a smooth process. Then again, that's where those organizations that choose to use a cloud provider are basically making a headache that could have been on in the building, making it the headache of the cloud provider. So that's what the cloud providers and the MSPs are paid for, is to make those headaches go away.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think that's, the ability to do that, the ability to lead with that conversation. I mean, I think the MSP goes way, way beyond just fixing printers and email now.
Absolutely.
It's just you have to be good at the business strategy and helping them in that planning process and be seen in a different light. I mean, I think we have a monumental shift that's going to happen in the MSP market. I've been talking about it for weeks now, and we're starting to see that where, you know, CFOs are making decisions about IT differently than they did 4 months ago.
Oh, I agree with you absolutely, Andrew. If I could tell another story, I got one of the MSP partners, the general manager of the organization, who's just a wonderful person, absolutely, likes to reiterate the fact that he's not the sales guy,
Yep.
right? And I had to have the conversation with him. Says, you don't have to be the sales guy. You have to be the sales guy. You're the general manager of an MSP. You have to know the client's problems, solve the client's problems from a technology and a business perspective better than the client can.
Yep.
You've got to be able to really break that down. And so that is, now you are the sales guy. You've got to be the expert in the relationship. You got to be the expert in the technology. So please don't ever say that again.
And I think that was always the challenge is, you know, we're tech guys first. We're not really good at sales, and you know, everybody hates being a salesperson, but kind of where do you see the conversation shifting? How should it shift actually in talking about cloud and about, you know, business continuity? Because that's what this boils down to, is business continuity at this point. It's not backups.
If it helps the person at the MSP who's a tech, you're helping with a solution. Yep. So go find the solution that makes sense within the business parameters. And at that point in time, hey, you're not a sales guy. You can go ahead and say that now. Yep. But the fact of the matter is you are actively working for whatever the best solution for them may be. So I would also just to do a little shift there on things that we're seeing. As I mentioned, the MSPs are working with multiple clouds now, and they really have to learn what the best cloud for the job is. Little concerned when you're working with a VMware cloud provider, and again, I'll be biased because Expedient is a VMware cloud provider. The margins that are available to you and reselling a VMware cloud are generally going to be greater than that of selling the Amazon cloud or the AWS cloud. Usually the pretty active MSPs in there, the resellers, are making about 4 points, where they can generally make 25 to 40 points, depending on the solution on the VMware cloud. I am not sure where the Azure resellers fall in at. I know that's somewhat of a different model because they'll get some rebates on licensing and such, and it's important to make sure that you maintain that relationship. But I will say that as the demands accelerate and the cloud native process starts, and the evolution of the cloud, if you will, and the evolution of what people do with it, that I think that's where the MSP role becomes paramount. And quite honestly, you can charge a higher premium for your services because you're going to be in greater demand, because somebody's got to be able to balance all these aspects depending the size of the business, your client business.
Interesting. Yeah. I didn't realize that there would be that much disparity, between, but yeah, that is super interesting. I know that there's a lot of push. MSPs, are finally embracing Office 365, those things from Microsoft, and, Azure's becoming more popular. But again, it's the learning curve, figuring out, what works, what doesn't work. And like you said, having the staff capabilities to do that. So I'm just going to, if you have questions for Steve, go ahead and drop those in the comments. I want to be respectful of Steve's time here this afternoon too, but I also want to answer your questions. Looks like we do have quite a few that are still with us live on the broadcast. And again, we've got a UK contingent, Steve. We've got we've got a very strong UK contingent, regular
I
watchers
do
of the
not
show.
ever
So
doubt your popularity, Andrew. I know that you've got the personality that can not only cross state lines but oceans.
yeah, it was like I interviewed Pete Matheson last week. He's from the UK. I think we were talking the other day. He literally closed the deal on his MSP the week before the UK went into lockdown. But
Oh.
yes, the timing couldn't have been. But yeah, he went up full. He's drinking a Corona during our interview last week. So yeah, it was fun.
So let's shift a little bit into what you'd let off with is how do you choose a good partner,
Yeah.
right? And I'm going to fall back onto the compliance, security, and reliability play.
Yeah.
So if the MSP is shopping for a cloud provider, things that you should be looking for within this realm. Now, and I'm going to tell one story in here. One of the reasons to do it is you'd mentioned just a few moments ago, being able to look around the corner, being able to see what's coming up in the industry, making sure that you're investing your time correctly as the industry is in constant motion. My organization, Expedient, we've got a team dedicated to innovation and what the cloud will look like 2.5, 3 years from now. Okay, that's great for us to be able to have, and that's of course why we're going down the cloud native path, because that is what's coming. Not every MSP, some of the larger ones can, but not every MSP is going to have that capability. So that's a reason to partner. Now, okay, but does your cloud provider need to have an innovation team? Sure, it helps. You want to be there. What's most important is the security aspect. The larger organizations will be able to layer things like Arbor Networks, for example, that has a DDoS prevention. Well, not everybody can afford that.
Yeah.
Okay. You get a client base so large, you can go ahead and put it in there and spread it out over everybody. And that's great for the client. That's good for the MSP. That's good for the provider. And, so that would be a question. If I'm an MSP and I'm shopping for a provider, do you offer DDoS protection as a part of your program? Is it an additional fee? Where does it fall in at? Compliance issues. I mean, it's standard operating procedure now. You've got to have your SSAE documentation. You've got to be able to show your ROCs and your SOCs. You've got to be able to show the HIPAA compliance, the PCI compliance aspects. What are you doing? Where are you doing it at? And in your SOC, being able to identify every little aspect of it, and it's smarter to do. It's smarter to do. Probably the biggest aspect of it and the biggest issue the MSPs are facing is the ransomware issue.
Yep.
All right. So, well, I read a report just last month in ZDNet. Secret Service had announced that there were a variety of MSPs that got hacked, and of course their clients got hacked, right?
Yep.
They breach the MSP, they get into the client network. The Secret Service mentioned, it was ZDNet, qualified that 13 organizations at 13 MSPs were breached. And then on top of that, what was the Huntress Labs said that they had 63 in 2019 alone. 63 organizations that were MSPs had some type of a breach from ransomware. So what I would recommend highly, if you're an MSP and you're shopping for a cloud provider, is that make sure they've got some aspect of ransomware mitigation that's available.
Yep.
Another really telling stat is that the county and municipal governments that were hit by ransomware in 2019, I believe there were 22 in Texas alone.
Yep.
So, and funny enough, they all had the same MSP.
Yeah.
So, sure, it was a very, very, very bad day for that organization. The idea is if you are the end client if you're the MSP, you've got to ask your cloud provider if they've got a ransomware mitigation solution or something along those lines that can bring them back and bring them back quickly, and it's proven. So we'd actually spoke with a county government, and they said that they basically went to the lowest cost solution that was out there, that was available, and it did not have ransomware mitigation. They said it did, but it did not. And basically saying that they couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
And we were along the lines of, if there's any one thing you need to be able to afford, it's ransomware mitigation. The bad guys know the municipal governments are strapped for cash. This year, after COVID, it's going to be worse than ever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And for them to go ahead and make sure that they've got that capability to them. So
that's an excellent point, and that was one of the challenges that I had as an MSP, that you like the ability to have a white label and be transparent, that you maintain the relationship to the client, blah, blah, blah. But I think I was reading this morning, to your point, talking about having outsourcing that SOC, outsourcing the compliance is going to be, I don't think it's going to be a choice anymore, because now what we're seeing is that insurance claims are being denied for MSPs, that they're now claiming, trying to make claims against their insurance policy. Their cyber insurance companies are coming back and saying, no, you don't have anybody qualified on your staff. You don't have anybody that has certifications or training or anything like that. You shouldn't have even been offering it. So now they're denying claims against, cyber and liability insurance of the MSPs to boot. So it's another kick in the stomach. So
I was not aware of that, Andrew, but it makes plenty of sense.
Yep.
I mean, if you can't keep a clean kitchen, don't be a butcher.
Yep.
Right?
So I think that's where we're going to see it that now, but it's going to be, I think it's becoming more challenging, one, for an MSP to get that insurance, but you're going to have to prove that you have the certifications, or at minimum that you've outsourced to somebody who knows what they're doing and is certified and is trained in what you're talking about, in ransomware mitigation, in the cyber aspects. Everybody's running to become an MSSP now.
Correct.
Because it's the new flavor of the month. It's another opportunity to make a little bit more money as an MSP. But I think that's where, you could be jeopardizing everything that you're working for as an MSP. And in addition to that, you're jeopardizing your clients. So I don't think it's going to be a choice very much longer. I mean, I don't think it is now, because I think insurance companies are not, they're looking long and hard about the claims that they actually pay out now.
Well, let's take it. Let's dive into that example with the MSP a little bit deeper. So let's say you do bring on somebody on your team with the right certifications who can go ahead and look at the security aspects of what's going on and the compliance aspects of what's going on. That is a very high ticket person, right?
Yep.
And unfortunately, sometimes the end client thinks that that's table stakes. Well, it kind of is table stakes, right? If I'm going to buy your service, it's got to be secure. Well, we want to have a secure service, but it's going to cost this much. That is a delicate balance in that for the MSP to address like that. I'll also say this much. I'm going to switch this back to the business end a little bit. A lot of the MSPs that I'm familiar with, they will go ahead and offer month-to-month contracts to their client base, proving to them that they're going to sing for their supper every single month. They're going to do a great job. That puts the MSP into a difficult situation some days. And if you're offering a cloud service, generally that is not going to be offered. Yes, Amazon and Azure offer it by the minute.
Yep.
That's right. Okay. But the MSP, if they're doing it on themselves, they've got to invest in the hardware in order to do it. And that generally is going to lead to a longer term contract. If they're tied in with the cloud provider, generally it's going to lead into a longer term contract. What will be an advantage is if you can have your clients go into that longer term contract, they become more sticky.
Yep.
They become more sticky. So that is something that we highly encourage the MSPs to do is to get their clients on 12-month or multi-year contracts in order to obviously help their cash flow and such. Again, COVID has made this a very tricky time for everybody.
Yeah.
And sometimes you've got to be able to work with somebody and commit with somebody. So if an MSP's been treating you well, sign with them for a longer period.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's going to be key. It's not just about margins anymore. It's really about having a team that's going to be behind you, when the rubber meets the road like it is right now. And yeah, like you said, is Microsoft, Amazon may serve a purpose for it, but yeah, they're not going to be there to help you out of a jam. And I think working with a resource that you're comfortable with, somebody who's trained in that and that has a vested interest in your company, I think that was always important for me in who we chose as vendors, more than can I resell it, can I white label it, are the margins better than XYZ company? So
right. All those aspects are important, but looks like anything else in business, it comes down to the trust factor, and really it's the trust factor between the end client and the MSP, between the MSP and the cloud provider. So without a doubt, there is an opportunity to build it. Local does help.
Yeah,
local does help. I mean, if somebody's mad at me, I'll tell it's like, I'll come over, we'll work it out. That's all right. Yeah. And I try to keep people from being mad at me. Let's call that out too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's key that Pete and I talked about this a little bit last week as MSPs. The challenge that we might see going forward as an MSP is getting a client to commit to multi-year contracts, given the uncertainty of the situation we're living in. But I think I think that, going back to our conversation, I think that's where not being in the CapEx game as an MSP is going to be key. That you're going to need to be nimble and put that CapEx expense on the cloud provider. Because that's what I saw a couple weeks ago is, this particular MSP had, I think he said he had $60,000 worth of equipment co-load in this cloud provider. And I think he was in North Dakota, cloud provider's in Pittsburgh. So he had to hightail it, do all of that, get his equipment out of there. But he's now stuck, based upon how things panned out, he's stuck with $60,000 worth of equipment that he really can't use. He's now got to figure out, what to do with that. So, Eric actually mentioned that here, said Pete mentioned that last week. Sticky, yes, unless they're unhappy. It's a tricky time now. Business needs the relationship built. And so I think that kind of goes back to what we're talking about, having that local vendor that you're working with where people know the people that they're working with. So I think that would become an advantage if I'm an MSP and we're working with, a data center vendor, a cloud provider that's here, and not, you're one of thousands of numbers in the Amazon cloud or, the Microsoft cloud. I think that can be a selling advantage that you're working local, because I think, we're going to see that groundswell as things start to open back up. People want to support local businesses. So I think that might become an advantage.
I can certainly see that. To your point, when COVID hit, my wife and I made it a priority to order carryout from local businesses, right? Yep. Local restaurants, not chains.
Yep.
Not chains, but local businesses where we know that there's an owner that sits behind that one, and we know times are tough. Well, so I can understand that people would want to stay local, even with technology on things like that. And again, when times get tough, people do default to trust, and that's a good thing to default to.
Yeah, it certainly is. Yeah, and I think that as we go forward, it's going to be about thinking differently as an MSP. What things can I take and make that at my advantage? And that's definitely one that I would make my advantage, especially since, most of our customers were based here in Ohio, that I still think that that's an advantage, even though, you guys, my relationship might be with you directly here in Columbus as the data center provider, but the fact that, you have geographically dispersed ability to move data around, I think, that I think is, as you mentioned, it's table stakes for a cloud provider to be able to do that as well, where your data is not just isolated sitting in a data center in one geographic area, So where do you see that being an advantage for an MSP, going forward as well?
Well, yes, it is. It's certainly an advantage. Thank you, Andrew. But it really is what the end client is going to need. We're thankful we're one of 12 data centers. We've got 12 in our mix and 4 overseas, and we can move data around where we'll go ahead and put production in one town, disaster recovery in another town. Some cloud providers out there have to partner with an organization in another geography in order to do that. It sounds great conceptually, but when the lawyers get involved, it gets a little trickier, right?
Yep.
What's our guarantee to each other? And the guarantee is such a hard word, right? So it makes this a little bit easier in order to move data around like that. So it is another consideration when depending on the target size and the target requirements of the MSP's clients. If you are in a little town like I'm in Marysville, Ohio, well then a small business might be okay with just having everything in one place. Yep. But you get into a mid-sized organization, a credit union, right? Something that's regulated, then you're going to have a disaster recovery play that is fully reliable. You've got to have a backup play that's fully reliable and proven. So again, for the MSP that's out there shopping, you might want to look at that capability out of your cloud providers. Go and visit the facility and take a visual inspection. Is it dirty? Is it run down? Is it clean? Is it, do they walk you through and show you everything? So those are some of the things to look at. You can walk through, but you got to wear a mask.
Exactly. Stay 6 feet away from me.
That's exactly it. You got to wear a mask. You got to stay 6 feet away. Unfortunately, I can't shake your hand, but we would be happy to show you around an Expedient data center at any point in time. Awesome. Thank you for allowing me to say that.
No. Like I said, you and I talked before. Yesterday that this isn't a sales pitch. I've known you. I see this being a problem in the MSP space. I see it becoming a bigger problem. But I if I'm an MSP right now, you need to stop and think about all of your vendor choices and where your client's data is at and how solid are the providers that you've chosen with, and it's not about margins. So that's, you're the smartest person I know in that. And that was one of the benefits that I had, being able to walk your facilities. That was one of the first things you and I did after we met. We walked through your facilities, and I liked being able to do business where, yes, if there's a problem, I can reach out, I can be there, I can be within driving distance, and we get to have coffee together again when the lockdown comes out. So yeah, there's the benefit of that.
Absolutely, and I would absolutely look forward to that as well, Andrew. So from here, for your presentation, for your show, what are the other challenges that you're hearing right now that the MSPs are facing? Obviously, the COVID situation's got everybody in a very precarious situation. But even outside of COVID, what's the number one challenges that you're hearing about in the marketplace? I mean, you're an expert in this field. You've been helping everyone out with this show.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest challenges. If you guys do have challenge, those of you who are still on the show, put those in the comments. But I'm going to go just based upon, the coaching and the training that I do and the hundreds of calls that we do every month with MSPs about challenges. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I think right now, and we had the same challenge when I was running my MSP through the 2008 recession, is I at that point, I had relied solely on referral marketing, and we did very good with that, where customers liked us. They referred us to others. We got business on a regular basis from that. That changed in 2008, where I now had to focus my attention on being in sales and marketing. Now I had to figure out another skill that I didn't have. And I think that right now is probably the biggest challenge is you now have to figure out how to differentiate yourself in a market that is Me Too marketing, where everybody's marketing is the same, if you're even doing marketing. And I think that was the other thing. A lot of people haven't been doing marketing enough. So now you're at a situation where you're losing customers. How do you make yourself available and let people know that you're available if you haven't been doing marketing, up to this point? I think that's the challenge that MSPs are finding right now is they've got to figure out how to get good at sales and marketing in a very short period of time. But I don't think that there's enough time to get good at that before we start seeing that groundswell of movement of people making different decisions on IT.
I agree with you in that realm. Absolutely. Another thing that makes it, let's throw out another obstacle at the MSP is that one of the key ways that you can endear yourself to a client base is by helping them out. Yeah. If there's a social activity, if there's a professional activity, if there's something going on in your community, go to an event, help people out, do a fundraiser, whatever that you're passionate about, right?
Yeah.
Engage. My passion is workforce development, so that's where the IT Leaders program launched, and I truly love it. It's a lot of work. Okay, fine. It's hard because the MSP, the management of the MSP, it's not a 9-to-5 job. That we all know that. You're essentially on call 24/7, 365, and carving out time to doing something and helping your community is difficult to do, right? But you need to do it. Now let's take that a step further. You can't do it right now, or it's very difficult to do because you're not there in person.
Right.
So
Yep.
So that's where the creativity has to come in. And if anyone's got some ideas on that, fire away. I tell you this much, Andrew, I know we're coming closer to the top of the hour. Yep. If there's any questions that have come in, is there anything you can address?
I'm going to look through the queue here, see if any questions have come in that I might have missed.
I'd like to say hello to Eric Steffi, who you said was on the line.
Yeah, looks like Eric is on the show. So,
Eric Steffi at Everstream.
Yep. Yeah, he and I were messaging back. I told him I was going to have you on the show, so he's got some stories on you, I guess. So, but no.
That'd be accurate.
Don't see any additional questions, but I think, that's where you and I originally had met was through Tech Columbus when you were on the platform. And it was going to events like that where, you don't necessarily feel like you have the time. Eric said, "Hey, Steve," so he is still here. So,
okay.
But yeah, that was one of the things that I made a point of doing was going to at least one or two of those events every month because you would meet people. And it's an interesting thing. It wasn't just about going and finding customers. It's about, searching for talent. And you mentioned that, finding people that are qualified in security, compliance, those types of things. That's actually how I met one of, to me, it was one of my prize hires. Was I got the guy who did the audits and compliance for the State Highway Patrol. I got him as my lead security tech just before we got bought out. But yes, Eric wanted to know too. He said, "Are any customers mad at you now?"
No. The answer is no. Of course not, Eric.
No, he said he's just kidding.
Nice.
So.
Nice question. No.
But anyway, but I made a point of doing that, and that's how you find talent. It isn't just about, going to these events to find business and to, hand out your business card to everybody who comes along. But, you look for your talent. You look for partners. That's how you and I came to find each other's through Tech Columbus events, going to these events where the know, like, and trust factor has to be there from an MSP to the vendor too. And I always liked doing business with vendors who knew who I was, for one. We had an RMM vendor that, was a global operation, so they didn't know who I was from the next guy who was writing them, $1,000 a month RMM check, and
Right.
and I think that's another unique advantage that you have working with local partners. That you have that business referral. I mean, I think you sent some business my way. When you see that a customer of yours is coming to you with a need, and like and trust people that can fill that need, I think that's another benefit of the social aspect. But yeah, we can't do that in person right now. But I think, that was one of the reasons that I started this particular show and making it a live stream is, got one take, and it doesn't. Yeah, as we've seen today, it doesn't always go well, but it's fine. But I think it's about just keeping that sense of community and that sense of education there, and it is being alert to the problems that not only my clients are having, but what problems do we see. And again, I've got clients all over the world, and that's the benefit that I have is you kind of start to see market trends. We saw this thing, with COVID kind of take place. It kind of dominoed from one side of the globe to the next. But you start to see those things, and I think that's important to be part of communities and be part of peer groups that share information. That's the other reason that frustrated me as an MSP is the knowledge sharing wasn't quite where I felt it needed to be. Where attorneys, doctors can be in a room together and not feel like they're competing with each other, and they share information and they battle each other in court and then go have lunch together. But that was one of the challenges that I saw. Maybe it's just a Midwest thing. But people were afraid to share, and because they were afraid somebody's going to take their customers and take their business. But that's what I wish we would see more of is people sharing, because I think that ultimately benefits our customers. And
I'll say this: in the Central Ohio IT community, led by Ben Blancara and Angelo Mazzacco, we have a greater level of collaboration than most technology communities do. I truly believe that. To a point that you made, and I don't think it can be emphasized enough, is that you see market trends and you see things that are happening because you've got a wide enough and diverse enough client base, so you're seeing things pop up, and you'll realize that after the second or third time, this is a trend. This is something that's real. And that's an advantage that my organization has as well, because if we've got 2,000 clients spread across, between Boston and Phoenix, then we are going to see things quicker than an organization that doesn't have that type of geographic spread or economic spread or vertical spread or whatever it might be. So the idea is now you can offer advice that is going to be more accurate, more timely in those situations, because you've got your input stream is more diverse. So it certainly is. It's a benefit. If anything, I'm often too guilty of concentrating on what's going on in Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati, but I get the input from my peers in other markets on what they're seeing and what they're reacting to. So that's why I asked the question is what trends are you seeing? Because you're going to have a much broader vision of the MSP market than I am. I'm working with my MSPs in this geographic patch, but I'm quite aware of what they're doing in other geographic patches. So,
retention's the other thing that I think is a challenge. Because like we talked about, CFOs are now evaluating things with a fine-tooth comb, and they're evaluating an MSP's response to this situation that we're still living through. It's not over yet. So I think that's going to be key too, is being high enough up at the food chain with the CFO that your contracts aren't called into question, and that you have truly brought value to the table during a crisis when companies needed us the most as IT providers. So I think that's the challenge that I think we'll start to see become much more pronounced in the next 30 to 60 days as companies start opening back up. People start spending a little bit more money than they were before. That I think is the next challenge for MSPs. And again, it's about educating customers at this point that you know what you're doing and that you're partnered with the right people to see them through the next challenge that we're going to see as companies.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for being on the show, Steve. I'm super, grateful for your time today. Hopefully the MSP community benefits. Those of you who are watching live, thank you so much. But I'm going to pop that on the screen. If you like this show, if you want to give Steve a shout out, please connect with him on LinkedIn. Let me throw that up. I think I brought your, let's see here, I don't think I brought it up on the screen. I'll put it in the show notes, a link to Steve's LinkedIn connection. Please reach out to him, and please give him kudos, give him a thumbs up for his time spending with us today. Super grateful that you were able to carve out an hour for us today, and I'm happy that we were able to reconnect after it's at least 6-7 years. I've been out of the game for 6 years, so.
It doesn't seem that long. Time flies when we're having fun, doesn't it?
Exactly.
So thank you for having me on today. I certainly did appreciate it. Anytime we catch up, it's always a good time.
Likewise.
It absolutely is.
Likewise.
So to my friend, the Orange Nomad.
Thanks again, man. Yeah, again, when this thing opens back up, we'll definitely have to grab some coffee together, so.
Okay. Take care, Andrew.
All right. Thanks again, Steve. Thank you guys for watching this week's episode. I'm super glad that we were able to have a guest that brought a wealth of knowledge of the MSP space, of the cloud space from a vendor's perspective, but also somebody who does a lot for the IT channel. So I'm super happy that Steve was able to join us today. I'm glad you were able to join us. Those of you who are still on the call live with us after an hour, thank you. But again, if this is something that is a topic that you think that is appropriate and that you want to share, please hit that share button, hit that like button. We want as many people as we can to join this movement of doing what is necessary. Because what is necessary for me is not necessary for you and is not necessary for the next person, but it's about doing what is necessary for you in business, doing what's necessary for you in life. So thanks again for tuning in. This is the Orange Nomad coming to you live from Columbus, Ohio. Thank you very much. Take care and have yourself an awesome, awesome day, and I'll see you on the next show.